Welcome to Wildspire. You get to be a fly on the wall for my intimate conversations with entrepreneurs who are changing the world. I'm your host, Stephanie Benedetto, coach, storyteller, and unmarketer at The Awakened Business, helping coaches and change-making entrepreneurs unleash their inspired message and share it with playful unmarketing. I'll ask curious questions and explore uncharted waters with my guest today. Anything can happen when we step into the unknown of infinite creativity, and that's where we're going to play. I first met today's guest many years ago when I was thoroughly entrenched in the world of weddings, when she was a wedding officiant and I was a wedding DJ. Judith Johnson is a force of nature, a rock star, a spiritual cosmonaut in hot pursuit of living love. Let me tell you a little bit more about her formal resume. Judith Johnson is an author, mentor, and educator. Her lifelong passion is liberating herself and others through understanding the dynamics of consciousness and how our perceptions and beliefs inform our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. As a mentor, she teaches others how to consciously thrive by identifying, forgiving, and releasing dysfunctional patterns and entrenched positions. Judith's work draws upon personal life lessons, her spiritual journey, doctoral degrees in social psychology and spiritual science, a master's degree in business, wisdom teachings from around the world, and mentoring others since 1983. An interfaith minister since 1985, she serves as a chaplain at her local hospital and counsels and comforts the grieving. She is the author of The Wedding Ceremony Planner and Writing Meaningful Wedding Vows. Judith's latest book, Making Peace with Death and Dying, will be published in January 2022. In January of 2023, her next book, Being You, A User's Manual, which shares her understanding of human consciousness, will be available. Our conversation centers largely on death, Judith's own close brush with death, and the deathbed promise she made to her mother, and how these events ushered in a deep knowing of that which we might call God. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Judith. Welcome, lovely Judith, to Wildspire. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
What would I like to say about you? You are the sunshine of my life, Judith. One of many sunshines. And we first met at a wedding somewhere ages ago. Was it at Mohonk Mountain House? Was that where it was? Where was it?
No, it was, I can't tell you where it was. I remember it was down Route 9D off that.
The Belvedere? The Belvedere Mansion, perhaps? No?
No. It was about an hour south of here.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was this little garden area, and you and Jeff were over there setting up the sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember. And it was you're always such a powerful presence and a beautiful presence at a wedding, officiating, holding ceremony and connecting people through a voice of love in such a beautiful way. And that's what comes up when I think of you then. And I'm so blessed that we have connected or reconnected through the years, and the evolution of both of our paths and our journeys have found us in different places. So it's really cool that we're here again today.
I want to go back to what you were just saying about officiating, because I had no idea. The first time I officiated a wedding, I had no idea that all of the energy of all the people, all the guests, is coming at you as the officiant. Okay. And it almost bowled me over the first time. It was really intense. And I finally, learned how to stay planted there. But it's an interesting experience officiating a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's so full of this intensity of what they want to come true,
Yeah, that's an interesting segue. Well, I think I had a similar experience as a wedding DJ when we would be, especially around the couple's first dance, or when they were dancing hard and partying, and there was so much love. I have never had a job where I felt more appreciated when the love was flowing. It was just a tidal wave of love. It was quite intoxicating. I saw why people would love it. So that what you said about everybody having, how did you put it? Expectations or something that they, at the wedding, it's like everyone owns a piece of it, right? They're so invested in different ways. So tell me more about what's happening there, since this is kind of what you do.
Well, yeah, it's one of the things when first of all, and you know this, is that when I officiate a wedding, I design the wedding with the couple. So every word that is said, every gesture, everything is thought through and chosen. Nothing is totally, I mean, there's a casualness as well, but I always tell them that a wedding ceremony is at once a sacred ritual and a theatrical production. So when I get one of these weddings where I've got 10 bridesmaids and 10 groomsmen and their dog bringing the rings and all of these crazy things, it's a theater production, But I also remind them that when they first come up to where we're doing the ceremony, there's this moment where, the bride arrives on whoever's arm she's coming up, and the groom is standing next to me, or the bride and bride, or groom and groom, or whatever combination. And there's this, like, they've been planning this for a year, they've been planning, or in times of COVID now, it's 2 years, but there are these expectations that everybody has. Oh, it has to be perfect. No, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, God forbid it rains or something, they get crazy. But, so often I would find couples come and stand before me, and they're like frozen in, and no air is moving through them. And it's one of the primary things I always tell them. You may find yourself with this frozen smile on your face. Please breathe. Make air move through your body. That's all you have to do when you first come. Be with each other and have air move through your body. And then I'll be talking, But it's true. And it's like there's just so many expectations. So, a lot of drama.
Yeah. So you had mentioned the theater of the mind. And speaking of weddings as a theatrical production, that's happening because of the theater of the mind, right? So tell me what that means to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, the theater of the mind is that each one of us, and I guess I could use a wedding as an example, each one of us has our very own theater going on up here. And the show that I'm watching and starring in is different from the one that you're starring in, And it's one of the things I talk to couples about ahead of weddings is I say, you're going to probably have some friends among the guests who are like hoping that their partner is going to get the idea to propose to them, that it's a good idea for them to get married. I mean, there's all of these things. And, maybe his mother doesn't like her mother, or all of this stuff is going on inside of people and then in their behavior towards each other. And it gets crazy dramatic. I had one wedding where at the rehearsal, the bride wanted her father to sit next to her mother in the front row and have her stepmother sit behind the father in the second row. The stepmother, I mean, this is the kind of thing that goes on in our heads, okay? And this is what happens. And her revenge took place at the wedding. She disappeared when everybody was taking their places. We had to wait 20 minutes for somebody to find her. So in the theater of the mind, everybody's in their own movie, and you kind of want to get people in the same movie the best you can when there's communication that needs to happen.
Oh my goodness. It's so funny to use an example of weddings. And I think that everybody who's been at a wedding has probably seen some small or large example of that craziness.
Yeah.
But how is this playing out every day for us? Because there are more subtle ways, right? It's not always the drama of a wedding looking like we're creating drama in other ways too. What would you say about that?
Every minute of every day, if you think about it, the camera's rolling, the camera is rolling in you at this moment, in me at this moment, anybody who's watching us. And we're processing. what the inputs are that are coming. And I can't remember the numbers. I think it's like 3 million or some, there's a bizarre number of pieces of data that each of us is taking in any given instant. And most of it's unconscious. So we don't even realize what is influencing our behavior. It might be we just have a feeling that makes us feel allergic to a particular person. It might be any number of things. But all this input is coming in, and then there's a filtering process, okay? So, for example, your major beliefs, like, for example, even something like monumental, like, do you believe in God or not? That's going to influence how you experience a lot of things. And, for example, you know that I do a lot of work around dying and death. And people's beliefs, for example, about is death the end, or is there some spiritual component that continues on? These are major beliefs that inform how we perceive things. So those are major filters that all this information is coming through all the time. My filters are different from your filters. And when we feel resonance with another person, it's very often because, we're vibing on having a similar belief or something, okay? Seeing something the same way. And it also plays into why it becomes so challenging for many people to deal with somebody who has a different point of view. Because we also live in a world that is inclined to categorize everything as right, wrong, good, bad, yes, no, binary thinking. And unless we learn how to get above that, get some altitude and be in kind of an observer position of what's going on, we end up getting caught in comparisons and judgments all the time. You know, they didn't treat me nicely. Well, you know, the heck with them. You know, we react. And until we learn how to deal with, oh yeah, I do have this whole structure. I call it the scaffolding of thoughts and beliefs and feelings that are like the structure of what goes on in here. And I often use the expression with my clients that what we want to do is renovate the scaffolding upon which you're living your life. So it's really kind of exciting and interesting. And it's very important to me, for example, that people not think that when we look, for example, at a dysfunctional pattern, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. We all have dysfunctional patterns, you know? We all have disagreements. I mean, I'm having an ongoing disagreement with one of my cats right now. I'm trying to improve her diet and get her to eat more moist food, and she only wants crunchies, you know? We don't have the same point of view, but we're working on it, you know? Life is tricky. Your life is tricky business. I don't know if I answered your question because I just.
That's okay. We're exploring. We can meander as much as we like here. I find it amazing that, you know, I would love to know what you see about this, right? I saw a diagram and I wish I could remember what it was because there was a name for it. There was actually a diagram of us playing out or showing what you're referring to as the theater of the mind. So every person living in their own bubble made up of the scaffolding, right? Which is a house of cards because it's made up of thought. It is so fragile.
Yes.
Including our identity, which is why we spend so much time and energy trying to hold it together when we don't know what's happening, right? So we've got this scaffolding of beliefs. And everything that we see, as you're saying, is projecting out into the world, is colored by that, is created by that. And no,
can I add one thing into that?
Yeah, please.
And we tend to be attached to a belief that what I think is true.
Yes. So this what I'm seeing is the way it is.
This is the way it is.
It's not just my opinion. That is the way it is. Yes.
That's the way it is. And if you don't agree with me, you're wrong. There's not an expansive abundance consciousness that says, well, you can have a different point of view and that's okay.
Yeah. So what I saw in this diagram was, if that were all there was, we would be stuck inside our own heads forever and nothing would ever change. And we would be walking around looking for people who had a similar enough worldview to hang out with, and avoiding all the people and probably hating and loathing the people that didn't. And they're so wrong, right? And we'd be stuck in that forever without any capacity for imagining that there's a different movie playing in their heads. But that's not how it works, because the system is much kinder than that. And somehow something new drops in. There's an awareness. So I would love to hear what you see in that. Like what is going on that allows us to even ever change and see something different?
There's a couple of things I want to say, and I hope I don't lose them. One is about couples. Oh gosh, am I going to lose it? Okay. What you were describing about how wouldn't it be awful if that was all there is this conflict of my way versus your way. And how sad when we look out in our world right now and we see an awful lot of that. I mean, we are living in a world where that way of thinking dominates. Okay. I also want to give an example of something that comes up a lot when I'm working with couples. Is that typically if you listen to a couple and couples, it's wonderful to observe that, because you can really zero in on the dynamics of communication between two human beings, and where does it get in trouble? And there are usually certain basic topics that come up that are problematic and challenging. And what I often see happening, and I wrote a blog about this called "Do You Know the 6 People in Your Marriage?" Provocative title.
I like it.
Yeah. And what it's about is that, like, let's say you and I have a disagreement. There's me as I am right now. There's my projection of how I want you to be and I think you should be. And there's how you are and vice versa. So there's these 6 people in the conversation. And to try and parse out who's talking at any given time is really quite fascinating. And to get the 2 people involved to really understand the complexity, which brings me to my third point that I wanted to bring out, is that what you were describing before and what I often refer to as the theater of the mind, that's really all coming out of our ego personality identity. And thank God there's more going on here than that. And I fully claim that I have a very strong belief that we are spiritual beings having human experiences, and that, for lack of better language, I think of us as souls. Okay. And when you think about, and I'm not going to get in, maybe I will, I don't know, but at the moment I'm not going to get into that too deeply. But when you realize that, for example, going back to the wedding image, the kind of love that everybody is very much trying to create happening is often very much coming out of an ego configuration of what we think is the best thing. Oh my God, we're going to have the perfect wedding. And we had this theme and this cocktail and blah, 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 blah. There is this fantasy, and a lot of it's fueled by the bridal industry and the magazines and websites and all. But there's something much deeper when, you think about like a mother's love for her child, and she'd lay her life down for you. I know my mother did that for me, and there is a kind of love that is so powerful. And that is the saving grace of the whole ball game, is that we can truly love one another. In fact, I'm trying to figure out how to, redesigning my website, there's certain things I'm still attached to in my old website that I want to carry over. And I don't know how it's going to happen yet, but there's this one statement on the bottom of every page that I'm going to keep somehow. And it's that love is our first and most sacred priority. And that if we can start getting that and understand the altitude that it takes to rise above all of the games and the craziness that we engage in, worrying about how we look and what do you think of me and all of that, which is all this ego personality stuff, to rise up. I mean, it's like what I find fascinating is people try so hard in this ego personality thing to be unique and special and to think that that's how you become special. But the most special thing in all of us is in all of us, and it's the same thing.
Mm.
That's how I see it. And it's when we can tap into that we really can love, honor, and cherish ourselves and each other. Because until we know that, we're playing games.
Mm.
But when we know that, it's like, oh my God, how amazing, how precious life can be.
Yeah. I want to share a story now that
Cool.
a couple of days, yeah, a couple of days ago really had me shook up. So I was a part of a coach training, and during it, I was given some feedback that I've heard before, that, wow, Stephanie, like, you have so much light. You're such a bright being. You come on a Zoom call and just like, and I have over the past few months, really, even maybe 6, seen that it has nothing to do with me, like small me, capital lowercase s self, Stephanie, like, and that lets it be cool, right? But the feedback that I got was, it's like you've got this beautiful light and we're communicating soul to soul and I'm receiving you, Stephanie, like it's coming through strong. And then there's like these labels that you give yourself of coach and storyteller and unmarketer. And it's like your little self is screaming for attention when everything is, you're so big here and it's so radiant. Like, why are you doing that? And something about it, so there was something in it for me to see that I didn't know what it was at the time. And I was like, oh shit. And it rattled me. It threw me. And I was questioning.
But didn't you already know that about yourself?
I did, but there was something more for me to see because, well, I'll tell you what I saw through it. So I was rattled and I talked about it as I want to do sometimes. And I just see where I came to with it was I saw how delusional all my thinking is, all my thinking. And it's like, and I was making it so personal. What does this say about me? And the minute I do that, oh my goodness, it's taking me away from what I really am, right? And focusing on that ego and that house of cards that is, oh, Stephanie is like this, but she's not like that. And oh, she should do this and she shouldn't do that. And all of that drama. And I saw how personal I was making it. And I saw, oh, Stephanie, this isn't personal at all. That's the story of every one of us. Yeah. We are these gorgeous, radiant beings of light. And all we have is thinking sometimes that we are other, interference. That's not even real. And I saw that and I thought, oh, I don't even need to worry about it. Just come home to that place you're talking about, that place where I know that I am that love, and it just falls away. And so what if I get stuck in the theater of my mind at some point and I forget? Who cares? I can notice that's happening and just, I'll come back home. It was so beautiful. And I heard that in what you were saying, that recognition of this is what we really are. And there are ways to talk about it, of rising above and also going deep. And I like that going deep too. It's like the ocean at the top is all the chop. And that's where we're in our thoughts and the drama and stuff. And underneath it, there's like a current you can flow. And if you go down even deeper, it's like the still waters of infinity and love and just peace and those beautiful feelings.
the link to, and this is again going back to why I'm so excited about consciousness, because consciousness is how we move between these different realms, the physical material realm and the spiritual realm. And that awareness, like where you place your awareness, like are we placing our awareness on, oh my goodness, I need a manicure? Which I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do. I do need a manicure.
How did you know?
I need to get these, I need somebody to take a sickle to these right now. But that's part of our reality of life. In fact, in my spiritual tradition, we reference the fact that the word Hu is Sanskrit for God. Hu, H-U. Mm-hmm. And human, we are human. So we are both divine and physical. It's like we operate on both of these dimensions. And it's not a matter of let me become egoless and have no ego. No. Your ego is a really important tool for functioning in this world. You're not going to get around here very well without an ego. You need it. And it's the same thing. It's like John Roger is my primary spiritual teacher. And I love this one phrase that he refers to the mind and the emotions and all of that as useful tools for functioning here. And they are. But that brings me to the question that I'm playing with so much these days. And that I have a book that's coming out, and I have one coming out in January of next year, and then another one the next year. And the one the next year is the one that's really about my stuff about consciousness.
Look at how excited you are when you talk about it. You're like, ah!
I'm like a kid in a crib. Ah! It's about it's currently called Being You, a User's Manual. And I'm writing this piece right now for it that's all about this one question that is so central to the whole ballgame, which is, who is I? Not who am I, because that gets us into the labels of, well, I am a mentor. I am a wedding officiant. I am this and I am that. No, who is I? I mean, you keep using that word. We all keep using that word, I. And the irony to me of the whole thing is that that's kind of the key to the oneness is we're always so busy using that word I, trying to distinguish ourselves. But in reality, it's what draws us together as one. It's kind of a great cosmic joke.
A friend of mine is engaging in I don't know if it's a 30-day experiment in which she is not referring to herself by any personal pronouns, I, or she's not using I or you or whatever, in referring to herself as the collection of memories, beliefs, and thoughts formerly known as an exercise in recognizing that I is completely made up in the way that we usually use it, right? It's pointing to the ego identity, and that there's something else that is who she actually is.
Yeah. Another way of saying that is that all the eyes, are just portals of perception for the same viewer.
So who is the viewer? What is the viewer?
Well, that, here's the thing. Whenever we get into the territory of trying to talk about spiritual stuff, and spiritual being the non-physical, our language is designed for the spiritual world, for the physical world. It's like, this is a piece of paper. This is a computer. We have names and labels, and we have all these agreements about it. But the spiritual comes through in very personalized experiences. Like I had, I'm going to share a story now. And I think I've shared this one with you before, but I had a pivotal moment in my life where that came through in a car accident where I became aware in a way I had never been aware before of what I will call, I went from believing in God to knowing experientially God's presence. I swear to God. Now that knowing, I can't share that with anybody. I can tell you the story, but I cannot translate that experience to another human being.
Yeah, tell me the story, Judith, so that I can feel it.
You'll be able to relate to this. I was traveling down the Taconic Parkway.
Fearing for my life already, with an iron grip on the wheel as I navigated those curves. Yes.
And there was black ice on the road, which I hit going 60 miles an hour. And my car went first. For anybody who's hit black ice, it's the most amazing experience because having been, we're control freaks. We all like to have this illusion that we're in control. And I'm holding the wheel and I'm, navigating. And all of a sudden I hit black ice and I have absolutely nothing to do with what's about to happen. And the car goes, where did it go? Yeah, it went this way first. And then it reversed and went this way, and then this way, and then this way. And as it was going, the second go round, it was going to head off the road down a ravine. Okay. And a voice came out of my gut. It didn't come out of my mouth. It came out of my belly. And it screamed out, I'm not ready to go yet. So you've got to take good care of me. Please take good care of me. I swear to God, that's a direct quote of what came out of me. I don't know if it was verbal. I don't know that it came out in sound, but I heard it. And it was me, a part of me. And in that moment, I subsequently found out from the auto mechanics that cars cannot mechanically do what my car did. My car, which was headed 60 miles an hour down off the road, went backwards in a complete circle. And I ended up, I'm hanging onto the steering wheel like I'm at a carnival or something, and I'm going backwards and my car went backwards. It went down the ravine backwards. I rear-ended against a tree. So here's the tree and my car, the trunk split in half. So the tree is here. Okay, my driver's seat broke, so I'm face up. My face is right here by the back window that has shattered in 8 zillion pieces of glass. Okay, and I'm lying there, and my first reaction was, I'm alive. I had this startling awareness that I'm alive, and my earrings and my glasses had flown off my face. But what happened was I entered into this euphoria that I realized, and again, I probably sound like a crackpot to some of you, but I guarantee you I'm not a crackpot. This really happened, and it really transformed what goes on in the theater of my mind. I had this awareness that I could not deny there had been intervention on my behalf. And nobody could understand why, when my friend went to retrieve my belongings from the mechanic, he gave his condolences for the loss of her friend. And she said, no, she's home eating a turkey sandwich. And he said, no, nobody could live through this, gesturing to the car. And he said, she must be a mess from all the glass. And she said, no, I don't think she got any cuts or anything. I did not get one cut. And I didn't believe anybody when they told me that the rear window had broken until I put my hand in the front pocket of my pocketbook the next day and cut my hand on the glass that was in there. But I did not get one cut. And the window was right here and had shattered all over me. Didn't get any in my cloth coat. Didn't get a cut on my face, any cuts, anything. And so I realized that I had been shielded somehow. Okay. Now for me, for some reason, that experience, and they say experience is the best teacher. For me, that experience moved me from believing conceptually in God to knowing God's presence. I can't share that, I can't transfer that to anyone, but I was taken to the hospital to be checked over and I was in euphoria. And I made the mistake of telling the doctors, I know that God is real. And they said, yes, dear, it's okay.
Here, take some of this and relax, young lady.
Yes, they wanted to medicate me. They seriously wanted to medicate me, and I refused medication. But, you know, I learned that it's not popular to talk about these things. But that was an experience that has changed me ever since. So, you know, it's like this idea of belief. And if people ask me, do you believe in God? The answer is no. I know.
So what changed? Like, if you look at before that accident and after, like, what was different for you?
It's like I knew what it meant to be a spiritual being. I knew what it meant that there was this other dimension. Really, really. I mean, it was one thing to think about it, but it became technicolor. It became living and breathing reality for me.
So how did that translate to your behavior? Like, what was different in the way that you were in the world after that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it took some time. It took some time because I had the only real injury I had was a concussion, and it literally hurt to think. And I was doing my first doctorate at the time, and I had to take 7 months off my program because it hurt to think. I can't explain it beyond that, but it hurt. And so I kind of had to go from, you know, intense academic studies and all of that to just kind of being, just kind of hanging around and trying not to think too much. But how it changed me was it brought a kind of a joy into me that and I have to say this in that what I'm talking about is not something that is it's not easy to talk about, and it doesn't translate, and it's a very personal inner experience. But there was something relaxed in me, and it's like my center of gravity shifted to a different place inside of me. It's like I know that there is a divine part of my identity. I know that now. I know who is I. I have a knowing of that is an experience, and it's not a belief.
Mm.
So, you know.
Yeah. I ask you these questions, Judith, because I know that when someone speaks of that, even though the words don't say it, and you can't give it to someone, when you touch that place in you, I get to look and touch that place in me. I get to touch it too.
Exactly.
So, and, you know, it's good for us. It's really good for us.
It is. And you know that I took care of my mother the last 9 years of her life. We shared a home. And on her deathbed, she had a similar thing happen for her. She was having a breathing treatment. And she died in 2006. My car accident had been in 97. And she had experienced kind of a jealousy because she knew that what I had happened, and she hadn't had that. And she was 89 years old. Come on, this isn't fair. And it wasn't like she was trying to force it or anything, but I got a call one morning, and I thought she was dying because it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I hear, "Laurie, come, hurry." And I'm like, oh my God, she's dying right now. And I'm like, are you okay? She says something, she could barely breathe, you know, something wonderful has happened. And I, of course, race across the bridge to the hospital. And I think I put my clothes on before I got there, but it was like one of those moments. And I get there, and she shared with me that in her breathing treatment that morning, she realized that she was being breathed. She realized, and that was the connecting point for her. And it was such a joy to me that she made that connection before she died. And that day she kept asking me, have they made the announcement yet? And I'm like, what announcement? She said, you know that God is real. She said, people will want to know. They'll want to live their lives differently. That's my mother on her deathbed. Isn't that awesome?
That is adorable.
I know.
That is one of the sweetest things it's such a beautiful and innocent thing you can't say that unless something that was so unknown or impossible is suddenly obvious. Like,
Yeah.
we have to tell people, like,
Yeah.
they're going to want to know this. Like, can you call the press?
Exactly. And the innocence to me of her thinking that she was the first and only person to find this out. And I remember asking her, who's making the announcement? She said, the three most powerful people in the world. And it was going to be the Pope, because she was Catholic, the President of the United States. And to this day, I can't remember who the third person was, but it was so precious. And, what better way to have to say goodbye to somebody you love? I mean, she was my treasure, my mother. And what a gift to have to know that she left this life with that.
It gives me such hope to see. I don't live with an awareness of that place, of that truth, but I have seen it. I have felt it. I have known it.
Yeah.
And just even remembering that is so tremendously powerful. And it gives me such hope to know that it's only ever one thought, one moment away, something as simple as I'm being breathed. It's a miracle.
Yeah. And the thing is the comfort of knowing that even when I'm not aware of it, it's true. It's really,
yes.
It's like I have a plaque in my living room that is a statement that apparently Jung had over the arch of entryway of his office. And it says, bidden or not bidden, God is present. And this little girl I knew, Sarah, was visiting one day, and she was about 5 at the time. And she said to me, Judith, what does bidden or not bidden, God is president mean? I said, you got it.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
Isn't that adorable?
Yeah. So,
and let me just say this, that this business about wanting to have more awareness of it, well, I think we have just to know that you ever had an instant of knowing that, it's just such a joyful thing. And I'm not aware of it all the time. I get caught up in all these little dramas in life, just like anybody else, like trying to get my cat to eat moist food, that's life. That's life.
So
I had no idea we'd have this conversation.
Oh, it's so good. That's the joys of just seeing what happens.
Yeah.
So your mom was the inspiration, the major inspiration behind this book that's about to come out of yours, Making Peace with Death and Dying.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. Deathbed Promise. My mother grabbed my wrist one day and she said, and when your mother makes you make a promise, there's no way of slippering out of it. You kind of have. She grabbed my wrist, and my mother and I were extremely close and connected. She grabbed my wrist and she said, promise me that you will write about what we've learned here. And what she was referring to is that we really, and let me preface this by saying our society is evolving, and I see some positive signs, which I'm going to talk about in that workshop I'm going to do. But there's so much dysfunction in how we relate to death, both as individuals and as a society. And she wanted me to write about that, to encourage us to do better. Okay, particularly in terms of the medical field. Let me just say this one piece is that in the field of medicine, doctors are trained to heal us and make us better. And lots of doctors experience a sense of they don't want to deal with somebody who's dying because that for them is a failure. I can't fix that person. Well, we don't need to be fixed. We need to be allowed to die. Dying is normal. It's not an abnormal thing. So needless to say, it took me 15 years to get this book through its own evolution. It went through it was 5 different books before it became the book that's coming out in January. And I really love this book. And I can check off my to-do list. Mommy, I did it.
And, I have been blessed to be able to get some previews of that book, and just reading the beginning, the story of your mom and the moment that your life changed in that. It's so personal. It's so touching. It's so moving. It's so immediate. It says, yeah, this is going to be you too. And someone you love.
Yeah.
And we don't know when. It's a beautiful and loving wake-up call in that way, because it's not bad news.
No. And one of the most important messages, I think, in the book is 2 things. You don't have to be old to die. And death is normal. I mean, we are all born, we all live, and we all die. We've got a bad attitude about death, and we can change that. But death, I have to say, in terms of my mother and her death, I mean, the level of intimacy and depth of love that she and I were able to share at the end of her life was magnificent. I mean, it couldn't have happened if she wasn't dying. So, there's good news and bad news.
Mm-hmm. I love the clarity that gives us. I suspect that that's probably what opened your mother to be able to have that moment of seeing, oh, I'm being breathed.
Yeah. And when are they making the announcement?
Oh, we should take out an ad in the paper in her honor. And just tell everybody.
I have an announcement. Yeah, we should have breaking news on all the TV stations. God is real.
Wow.
You'll want to live your life differently. Yeah.
So as you find yourself bursting with enthusiasm over consciousness, what is the central message or truth, or what do people need to know about that will really make a difference in their lives?
If you change your attitude, you change your entire experience. You have the power to look at things differently. And if the way you're looking at things now is not giving you what you want, change how you look at it. Let go of your attachment to your current point of view. Expand your point of view. Talk to other people. Find other ways of looking at things. Let go of your judgments. Make space for everybody to be awesome and wonderful and precious. It's like, every one of us is like a fabulous gift under the Christmas tree, and just having that, moving out of that sense, that state of constant competition with other people, to being open and relaxing into being who you are, because each one of us is really delightful and precious when we get all of our yuck stuff out of the way, when we clean the lenses of the glasses through which we're perceiving life. When we clean that all up, it's like, wow, there really is an ability to be our best selves. So kind of roll up your sleeves and get to work.
What would you say to somebody who wants to see that? Okay, that sounds great, Judith. Where do I look? How do I even begin? Because it looks so not that to me.
Yeah. Well, how do I answer that other than to say, there are people like myself who are out here in the world helping people do exactly that. It's like I offer a program called the Deep Dive, and to take people deeply into how are you functioning right now and how does that work, so that we can get in there and do rewiring. But you have to find somebody that you can work with who you trust, either that or do it. I think it's hard to do it on your own, because I think it's important to have another human being bear witness to who you really are and the truth without any judgment. It's not right or wrong. It's just the way it is right now. It's like if you're trying to go to California and you made a wrong turn, you know, and you drove into the Atlantic Ocean, you might want to turn around. Somebody might want to say, hey, you're going the wrong way.
Yeah, the water might be just a little bit of a clue.
It might, but some people don't notice the clues, you know, but it's like, again, I think that it matters to have somebody that you're comfortable with that can take you by the hand and say, let's find your path. Let's find it. You know, because I don't believe any, you know, there's the expression, God didn't make junk, you know. It's like, let's get out the silver polish and find out who you are in there. You know, it's so exciting to me to see people discover the beauty of who they really are, you know, and to claim their gifts, their talents, to share them, to enjoy their work. I mean, I was raised in a family where my father taught us that we're just all a bunch of working stiffs. That was his phrase, you know. You get up in the morning, you get dressed, you go to work. It was like, what drudgery. So maybe my way of seeing things is a bit of a rebellion to that.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
At some point, we're all going to be a bunch of stiffs, but we don't have to live like working stiffs.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm about to go off the rails there.
Go off. Go ahead. Go.
No.
I encourage you.
I was going to say we'll be playing stiffs, but now it's starting to sound rather naughty. Oops, I think I said it. There's something just very, very simple and beautiful that I love to hear you say in that, Judith, of like, let's just see. Let's just look at how beautiful and wonderful you are, how wonderfully, fearfully and wonderfully you are made. That's a quote from the Bible that somehow has stuck with me. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. It's what I suspect your mother was seeing in this. I'm being breathed. That self with a capital S self that gets to live and create through us. And that it's okay that we've got all the human mess. We all have the human mess. And to just have somebody hold your hand and say, you know what? I love you through it all. So powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to be clear that, you know, you don't have to believe in God, but you have to open up to the wonderfulness. There are greater things happening than our ego personality stuff. And no matter what you want to call it, to be, you know, like something's breathing me. There's some mystery here in the world. This is kind of there's something more going on here than how much do I earn each year and have I lost the 5 pounds I want to lose. You know, it's like, come on, there's more going on. Yeah. It's like when I was ordained, I was given an ordination blessing that is about balance and joy. And at the time I thought, oh, balance and joy, that didn't seem very relevant to me. And I found that my life, that those have become the central features of my life, is that I've had to figure out how to keep all the different levels of myself balanced. And I had to get the parts of me that sat on top of my joy, I had to remove them so that my joy could spring out. You know, and it's a process. It's a process coming into being ourselves.
Cool. You're making fun of me for saying cool. I really like that word.
I know you do. And I love it when you say it.
I shall receive it that way. So I'm very excited about the workshop that you're going to be doing for me. It's for me and also my amazing community of the Awakened Business, because I'm really excited to see what I will see new about death. So tell me a little bit, just like in a nutshell, a little synopsis of what we're going to explore, what you're going to show us. Like, what will we come away from this thing with?
What you'll come away with is hopefully a couple of things. One is that that we've been sold a bad bill of goods about death. That there is in our society this thing that is called that's a giant death taboo. It's like a wet blanket that has us living in fear about death, rather than embracing that this is part of the reality of this thing called life. That every moment, that we're living, we're also dying. That's a simultaneous process. And that there's a lot to be gained by embracing that duality of life. Okay. Another thing that I want to bring in is what at a minimum, the fact that you don't have to be old to die. There are certain things that all of us should be taking care of to prepare for the end of our lives, not in a sad way or anything, but to say, hey, wait a minute, if something happens to me, like if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, here's a couple of things I want you to take care of for me. And here's my thoughts about it. If you don't voice your point of view legally through certain documents while you are healthy and well, other people are going to make decisions on your behalf, and they might not be the ones you would want. So that's something else. And I think I'll leave the rest as a mystery. There's some great visuals.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I love mysteries and great visuals. So that's perfect.
And journaling. There's going to be some journaling. So people need to bring a little journal with them.
Oh, awesome. So I want to invite you officially, as you're listening to this, to come and join us. And you can do that at theawakenedbusiness.com/death. You know how to spell it. DEATH. Go there, be square. We shall be there celebrating death and life.
And lightening up about death.
Yes, lightening up about death. That is what we're going to be doing throughout the experience. So Judith, if someone would like to connect with you, learn more about you, and explore their own beauty in the ways that you have described so wonderfully, where can they find you?
They can email me anytime at judith@judithjohnson.com. They can follow me on Facebook and Instagram as The Thriving Studio. And my website, which is currently under construction, but the old one has some good stuff in it too, and that's judithjohnson.com. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I also want to mention that I do offer a complimentary first session to mentoring clients, because I think it's really important for people to find out if they are a fit with somebody before they make any commitment to a journey that is as important as this. So
cool. So if you are resonating and are moved, reach out to Judith. And I think you'll find, I find her to be adorable and full of life and fun, really fun hanging out with you. Thank you so much, Judith. Thanks so much for joining me for today's Wildspire conversation. If you'd like to receive a weekly Wildspire email from me filled with inspiring stories, unmarketing experiments, tips for playing your way to impact and income without the hustle and hype, insights from my spiritual business journey, and more, go to theawakenedbusiness.com/wildspire. Until next time, may you know yourself as the gorgeous wild creation you are.